All right, folks. I didn't share with YouTube today. So maybe we will in a little bit, but you all ready to get this thing going? Let's do this. All right, folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and share them far and wide. The two A's, folks, the two A's. Advertising and algorithms, or algorithms and advertising. Take a second of your time if you're on YouTube and go over to Rumble, like and subscribe there, also vice versa. But of course, the best place to follow us, as always. Damn, mirror the camera. Right there, peoplespundit.locals.com. Peoplespundit.locals.com. All right. Before we get into our national poll, which I'm literally working on right now, and I'm going to show it to you like live. I'm going to process it. We had to do a little bit of really it's called rebasing and whatnot. So we collected a lot of interviews since the convention. And you guys know how I feel about waiting up when you do not collect enough responses for a subgroup and you wait up. Your waiting efficiency falls and your chance, first of all, your sampling error for subgroups is going to rise. Theoretically, it should rise more than they tell you. And then also your bottom line in layman's, your chance of an error is going to go much, much higher than they say the sampling error is. That's the truth without getting into a lot of convoluted math. And you're essentially trying to guess about certain people. You're trying to guess about certain things that you don't know. You want to guess about information that you don't have, that you did not collect, using too small of a group, too small of a sample. You cannot extrapolate based on these tiny little samples what a whole group of other people think. That's what I've been arguing for years, and I honestly cannot believe that we're still having this argument. But before we do, I want to talk about the CNN polls that just came out real quick. I actually want to defend a couple of pollsters here. I think I'm looking at the CNN poll, and I'm feeling bad for them, SSRS, honestly, because I understand what they're going through. For people who don't know, I don't have to pop them up and show them. But in the gist of it is Trump is carrying the Sun Belt outside of Nevada, where it's close. Harris is a little lead, carrying the Sun Belt. And then he's got like a 5-point lead in Arizona. And by the way, if he carries Arizona by 5, he's going to carry Nevada, despite that the poll has her up by, I think, 1 point. Nevada has been moving to the right or staying, even though Democrats have won statewide elections. It has stayed Democratic as it has shifted to the right and the right and the right. So basically what that tells you is it really is a matter of time before they cannot stop that tide if the trend continues. And we're actually going to look at what that would, how that would be the case. For instance, if Trump gets like 40% of the Hispanic vote or more, that's problematic for Kamala Harris, and because he's going to underperform in the polls among white voters. He typically overperforms with white voters, and he has overperformed with minorities as well. But because white voters are such a larger segment of the electorate, if the polls only show Trump up 7 to like 10 points with white voters, but he does 13 to 16. It's a tremendous difference in what the poll expected it to be. All right. Again, a couple of things I want to be clear about before we get going and into this. Because by the way, that CNN poll, and this is going to piggyback off of that. That CNN poll also basically had a tie in Pennsylvania. Harris was ahead in Michigan and ahead in Wisconsin, but it was tied in Pennsylvania, and Michigan looked better for her than Wisconsin did. And technically, I mean, you look at that poll and it looks like he has a little lead in Pennsylvania. Here's the bottom line. That is a massive, massive disappointment for Harris coming out of her convention. Biden got a 7-point bump, and I'm talking about in our own polling. Harris had gotten Clinton had gotten a 5-point bump. You're going to see that really Harris's marginal difference is no more than 2 points throughout the time that we polled. She didn't get a bump. And we're going to look at region and divisions that really matter. So obviously census region and census divisions. And what I'm saying is this that I'm going to show you is the last interview is actually collected up until yesterday. So this batch that I'm going to show you is essentially Saturday or Friday through yesterday, I believe. It's about 4,000 responses weighted down to a little bit, I think about 3,100. We'll see. And Black voters were very, very, very willing, particularly Black Democrats, were very willing to continue to take polls, which, again, I'm happy with because what it tells me is, and you'll see the initial Black vote support for Donald Trump. What it tells me is that I think Trump is going to do a little bit less in the polls than what we're seeing right now. Oh, crap. You're telling me I didn't do that? Okay, hold on 1 second, guys. 1 second. I think he'll do a little bit less. And if I could be wrong, I mean, in truth, I could totally be wrong, and Trump winds up doing much better than I think he's going to do. I just think it's probably likely that he is over polling in Black support. Kamala Harris is doing better than Joe Biden was. Okay, but it's not enough. He is not down to the numbers that he saw in like against Clinton, even, and against Joe Biden, certainly. That was not the case. And now we've been polling for a while. We polled that first poll from August after they pulled a little switcheroo. And the fact of the matter is, he fell from what I thought were absurdly high numbers for Black voters, but he did not fall to the levels that he had historically been polling at and what we expect a presidential candidate from the Republican Party to get. All right. The same is true here. It looks like he ticked down just a hair, but when you show the deciders, for instance, he's up. So I think that, again, sampling errors for subgroups are higher. So keep that in mind. But we are looking at a weighted sample size of 375. But within this particular sample, it's actually 534 because we collected so many responses weighted down and modeled. Okay. And we can show you this is not fully tweaked and done, like I said, but I really don't think we're going to see that much of a change. The weighting for area and geography is done. It's granular. Gender is done. We don't wait for party. Education is basically done. It looks a lot less educated this month than it did last month. And last month it was way too educated. That is a response bias, folks. A response bias. I actually think post-grads are only going to be about 13, maybe 15% of the electorate. But right now, as it stands, right now, you have two groups that are more, I don't want to say anxious, more willing to, their self-reported participation is higher than it has been in the past. And that are those who don't have a college degree and those who are on the lower income bracket who also don't have a college degree, which is more of Harris's shtick. All right. If you earn about 30,000 to 100,000 and you don't have a college degree, you're a super Trumper. If you don't have a college degree, but you earn below 30,000, which is weird, then it's not, though. Hear me out. You're more likely to be a Harris voter or a Democratic voter in general. And why is that? They're more dependent on the state. We're just going to be real with that. All right. They are more likely to need assistance, right? So, and I guarantee you that if we would poll it and we would say, "Hey, are you on government assistance?" We're gonna get a huge number for certain people in this category. We'll also talk about for and let me tag it because our tag is starting to go nuts. Look, tag pops right up inside the FBI comes after. Tag pops right up for inside the numbers, by the way, on Twitter now, which is awesome. That was banned before Elon Musk bought it. The tag inside the numbers, banned. All right. So what else? Tim Walz has continuing problems. We need to talk about that because we actually did hear quite a bit from voters about Tim Walz. So I do think that is now starting to settle in, that people are starting to realize it. Megyn Kelly just did this hour-long plus special with people who served with Tim Walz, and it was absolutely damning and just incredibly damning. All right, let's see how it's going. All right, let's see. Hold on one second. Give me ballpark 2 seconds here. Okay, and we will pull this up in a hot minute. Okay, cool. Righty. Thinking that we're just gonna go right to it. You know, right to the gist of it. All right. I know it's small. This is the back end. This is what I see. I'll put it up and make it bigger. All right. That's maybe I can zoom in a little bit here. What I'm doing is making, and this again may change a little bit. I'm just showing you what we're seeing. It was pretty cool. I was watching I think I can't remember the name, two-way, something like that. And they had different posters on, and they were explaining what would be the result if we had this weight, that weight. So I wanted to show you guys some of that, but just to let you know, as a little bit of disclosure, this probably will change a tweak, but I really don't expect it to change very much at all. And it's all about transparency. So there it is. As you see, I didn't really I haven't made it pretty yet, but you can see what we asked about. Right track, wrong track. We did front loaded, of course, as you should, the ballot questions. We did approval for Joe Biden, approval for Harris, retrospective approval for Trump. We did favorabilities for everyone on the ticket. Of course, the top and bottom of the tickets. We did a generic ballot as promised. We leaned the generic ballot this time to see where people are at. I can tell you Republicans are running significantly behind Donald Trump. This has continued. We are now we are after Labor Day, but this is a Labor Day benchmark poll, which is why I held this for as long as I did. All right, I'm just going to tell you right now, 5 days. So 4 days of collecting, the 5th day after the convention, the initial ballot test was Harris 48, Trump I think it was, wait a minute, let me go look it up. 1 second. All right. Actually, it's not, it was a little bit high. So, okay, the initial ballot test was Trump 49, Harris 49, Kamala 40. Oh my God, Kamala 49, Trump 46, and it ironed out after 24 hours. That is not a bump. Okay. And by the way, the decideds were still going for Trump heavily. They have toned down now. They're a little bit more evenly split, but you can see the undecideds are still breaking for Trump. It's just that he was winning them 60-40 before. So what does that mean? The response bias was favoring Harris for a little bit. It gave her a marginal extra boost, but that's not really it's not a bump. I mean, it was a marginal increase for the time being. It's noise. That is by definition noise. It's a marginal change in the numbers, not a statistically significant change. And if you counted the leaners, it really was no more than a Harris plus less than 2. It was 1.6. So that vanished immediately after. And they've been doing this little dance for days. Trump up 1, Harris up 1. Trump up 1, Harris up 1. As you can see here in the initial ballot test, they're deadlocked. Harris has a few more interviews. So if we were going to do an actual not rounding kind of thing, it's Harris plus 0.6. And then you do the leans. And when you look at the leans, Trump carries the leans significantly. And because he does, the race is essentially totally deadlocked at the national level. This is really remarkable. It is remarkable. And by the way, we'll keep going a little bit because we still had a little bit of a budget. So we'll keep going. And the point is, what we intend to release, obviously, the crosstabs you will get, and then a trend line graphic that tells you how this thing evolved over time. All right. I just didn't know with that what could be the last, if it's not the second to last data point, was going to be until today. And literally, I got a chance to create some variables, race. We did region and division. Age is pretty interesting too. It's pretty cool too. We did do that, as you can see. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Pull up party identity. I haven't even looked at party. I haven't looked at Republican or independent identification. We'll look at that together. It's a little bit Democrat. It's like D+1. By the way, the overall sample after rake weighting adjusts to D+1, which is Democrat 37, Republican 36, the rest independent and something else. We'll go through all this ethnic origin, super, super important. In fact, before we even do anything, let me add ethnicity and national origin. Okay. Why? Because it's so damn important. And I'm going to save it. I'm going to zoom in and we're going to take a look at this together a little bit. Okay. Let me close this and we'll open it back when I need to move something and show something for you guys. Don't even look. We'll look at race and we'll look at region and all that good stuff in a little bit. Just give me a second. Okay. So here's ethnicity. All right. If you identify, and this is going to hurt Kamala Harris, there are two things I immediately see. Immediately. That is a problem for Kamala Harris. Okay. And really three, but the two largest sample groups are those who identify as American, if you're white. I don't want to use the word native, but basically we're asking people, what is your national origin? Which, we ask for first what your race is, of course, then what is your national origin? Okay. Harris carries those who are non-white, of course. It's not that big of a margin, right? So, but you have to understand too, it will also be a lesser sample. If they are somebody who doesn't identify as 100% Black or African American or 100% Hispanic, not white, then they get put into this category. So the other is not going to reflect what the combined percentage of the electorate is that's not white. That's just not how it works, okay? The American identification. Number one, if you go back and look at the public polling project from 2020, you're going to see that it was less. It was less of the overall sample than what you are seeing right now. Why? Well, there's two reasons. One is I think it represents people's attitudes. And also, I think it also tells you a little bit about who's going to vote. And in the end, Trump did get like a huge turnout from Trumpian voters because Trump did better with those who identified as American than he did among those who identified as English. If you were someone who identified as English, number one, because you can see it here, it's Trump 52-40. Number one, they were voting for Joe Biden. That's number one. Okay. Number two, there was a closer gap, I guess is what I want to say. There's a closer gap with those who were American. Trump was winning them, but he was winning them like 52-48 or something. I'd have to go back and look. Maybe 53-47, maybe something closer like that. Danish is very small. The rest are very small. And until we show you the aggregated ethnicity, I really don't want you to look at anything else here because, for instance, look at Norwegians. It looks close. Harris is winning them 55-40. Folks, only 23 interviews. If we would poll Wisconsin and make sure that groups are represented, or we would poll Iowa, because that's another one with a significant number of Norwegian voters or Norwegian ethnicity. If we were to poll Pennsylvania, we're going to see there's a lot more Germans than what you see here. And by the way, though, the German sample is large. It's 141. It's not huge for a poll this size, but it's not exactly a few interviews, a handful of interviews. Not, this could be, and we'll see when we poll Pennsylvania, which we will. We'll see if this is translated into a much larger sample, because if it is, Kamala Harris is going to lose the state of Pennsylvania. And I don't want to say not, it would be close based on these numbers, but it wouldn't be a blowout. I'm not sure. It's like a Barnes blowout, right? Like what he's saying on what are the odds? But it also wouldn't be like nail biter close, and we're all going to wonder who's going to win this election. It would be probably worse than what Hillary lost it by. Maybe like a Biden size win, or I mean, I'm ballparking it here, but the reason why I'm saying that is because she would have to be doing much better with those who identify as English, because that's what drove Biden's massive numbers in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania, but also even when you went to the Northeast and the Scranton way, the Scranton Joe, right? And he had this persona about him. He was crushing Trump with English people who identified as English. He was crushing them. And they tend to be a bit more bougie. Let's call them what Kevin Phillips called them. Silk stocking Republicans, right? Silk stocking Republicans, who are now many of whom are really Democrats. They are English, by the way, are more educated than American, right? So this should not be similar, which it is, to those who identify as Americans. So Trump's got a bigger lead with them at 16 points, but he still has a 12-point lead with those who identify as English. It's bad news, man. It's bad news for Kamala Harris. And this is why, by the way, hold on. This is why we talk about the disparity between and that's the point of this, the point of this episode is for me to try to convey this to you guys. That is the problem with looking at national polls and thinking a pollster has a grip on how the Electoral College is going to go. Even some of the Harris plus threes out there, I'm looking at them, and I guarantee you, if they would show you ethnicity, I would pull it out and I would show you, I could walk through with it. I could walk through it with you and show you why that Harris plus three is probably a Trump victory. And by the way, she probably wouldn't win by 3, kind of thing. Right now, we have this basically dead even, which would be a Trump win in the Electoral College. And it is an erosion for Trump, a hair. It's marginal, though. It's marginal. What I care most about is why I named the show Inside the Numbers. What really can we glean from looking at the data, looking beyond the headlines? That really looking inside the numbers. All right, speaking of which, let's look by race. And this is race detail, so remember, Asian, smaller sample. I think Trump is doing too well with Asians in our poll. I think she'll do better with them than it suggests here. Hold on, let me take a sip of coffee. But it is a very small sample size. I'll just keep that in mind. And truth is, it's larger because it's the base is adjusted, obviously, the full sample size. But Black voters here, you're still looking 19%. Again, the highest Trump ever got in our polling against Joe Biden was 12. The exit polls suggested he got 12. Some of the voter validated surveys are as low as 9, and others are like 10 or 11, depending on who you believe. Edison is 12. I think the vote cast, which is again not voter validated. Well, it is, but it's not a post-election voter validated study. That was Trump 10%, I think. Don't quote me on it, but it's ballpark. And the most he ever got in our poll was 12. And he was polling in polls like the New York Times poll, the YouGov that I'm at like 2%, I think. I'm not kidding. Or 4%. Quinnipiac had him at 0% of the black vote at one point, which was absolutely laughable. That is not how statistics work. It's just not. So the fact we have him consistently around 2 and 10 tells me the guy's probably going to win between 15 to 22% of the black vote. And I'm erring on the side of caution. And I'm going to the lower end of that sampling error. Is she higher with black voters than Joe Biden was? Yeah. Because with leaners, look at the leaners. She's taking 70% of the leaners, and altogether she wins black voters 78-22. But the guy's going to win a decent chunk of the black vote. Like, this is not what they expected. It's not. From switching out Biden and putting back in what they thought they could sell. Let's be real for a second. Let's just be real. For what they thought they could sell as a black woman, it is not in the direction. It is not how much they had hoped. Let's get real. We know that to be true. All right. Trump's over 40% with the combined Hispanic vote. That is down a little bit from last month, that when he was basically in the mid 40s. But again, that's marginal. So we'll see how it goes. I would not glean too much into the Asian vote. I think he's probably going to do worse. However, I am talking to other pollsters, of course, as we all do, and they have basically found some movement like akin to what Robert has been talking about. There are certain positions and certain things that they simply don't like about the Democratic Party anymore at this point. And yeah, well, I just have to see how it goes. Trump winning other ethnicities, as he really always has. When you combine them with Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, he gets basically a 55-44 lead, 55-45 lead. That is very much in line with where he was against Hillary Clinton. What else can we talk about with this? White vote is probably understated. I'm not going to lie. Not that I ever do, of course, as you guys know, but we understated his support with the white vote in 2020. We understated his support with the white vote in 2016. Polls understate Donald Trump's support with the white vote. And while they do with obviously other voters as well, the reason why it really does matter with the white vote is for every point you fall among whites, if you're a Republican. Nationally, you need to make up 6 points with black voters. Now, it's a 6-to-1 ratio. Now, that doesn't count how much he's gained with Hispanics at all, which is the difference between that. I mean, this is the difference between, the Biden +4 and change to where we are now, which is essentially a split race. Trump got one more interview than Kamala Harris did when you lean people. One. He's slightly down until you lean them. She's up by about a point if you round. But Trump's carrying the leaners, and he has been the entire time. That's a change. That's a change from Biden. Biden was down a lot more to Trump, but he was winning leaners. And when you obviously took them in combination, it wasn't enough for him to catch up. That is not where we are with this race anymore. Trump is winning leaners. Harris has got a teeny edge without them. Trump wins them by a large margin, and we're literally 50-50 tied here. You guys see this? This is a 50-50 tie. Will there be some maybe minor adjustments? Maybe, but I really don't think it's going to change much. Region, division, area, it all looks pretty much spot on. All right, let's get to some of those divisions and regions. Let's first start with region, and then we will get into divisions, which is like if for those who don't know, you have census regions. There are 4 census regions: the Northeast, the South, or actually Northeast, the Midwest, the South, and the West. And you have within those 4 regions, you have subdivisions. Within the Northeast, you have the Middle Atlantic and New England. And that matters again. And you're going to see, I mean, these numbers, I think it's really, really solid representation of where this race is right now. And as we go through some of these subgroups, I think you're going to agree. I do, whether you're a Harris voter or you're a Trump voter or an honest one for each. I think you're going to look at these and say, you know what? This is very much in line with how this country has been voting for the last 2 election cycles. All right, let's go to region. All right. Coffee. Okay. As you can see, obviously, Kamala Harris is winning the Northeast 51-42. When you lean, Kamala is winning the leaners in the Northeast 55-45. Now, moving on to the Midwest. Trump has a pretty decent lead in the Midwest to boot, starting. He's got a 5-point lead. Harris does take the leaners in a 60-40 break. Talking small samples here. When you combine them, Trump has a slightly bigger lead than he had in 20, and that's the ball game. All right, I'm just trying to be real with everybody. And like half who are going to watch this video are going to be pissed to hear that. Half are going to be overjoyed. The Midwest being 52-48 is Pennsylvania to Trump. That's also, by the way, Wisconsin to Trump. Michigan, maybe a bit of a different story, but yeah, it could. All right. Especially if you see a state like Minnesota not budge at all. Exit polls said that Trump basically won the Midwest by about 1.5 points. And that's what the exit polls had in 2020. However, I think AP Votecast had Biden winning the Midwest, and don't quote me on that. But Edison most definitely did. It was like Trump +2, something like that. So this is a 4-point lead. It's a little bit more than what the exit polls show for Trump. I actually think the voter validated studies had Biden ahead by 3 or 2 in the Midwest. So if this pans out to be the case, that's the ball game. All right. And looking at the South, looking a little closer than, other past elections. And I've said this, I think that's going to be the case. Republicans better learn to diversify their coalition, because if they listen to the Ann Coulter model, they will begin eventually to start to lose states like Mississippi. I'm not kidding. No, I said that. And I'm deadly serious. When white voters in a state like Mississippi no longer vote like black voters vote for Democrats, and it's monolithic, and only people like Donald Trump maybe step out of that a little bit and get more, because you can see it all through Western Mississippi with the old school black belt counties. Trump significantly outperforms in those areas. You could conceivably get like a Nikki Haley, and white voters, even if they went a little bit more for Nikki Haley, and the black vote went monolithically for the Democrat, the way that, they did for Obama. In 4 years, it'll be tighter. In 8 years, it'll be tight. In 12 years, it'll be gone. Whites are getting too educated. Republicans cannot count on them in a state like Mississippi to vote 70-30 or 80-20. So you better diversify, or it'll be the next Georgia, which also consequently has a 30%, sometimes plus, share of the electorate being African American. All right, the West obviously is Harris's. And this is what I meant. Like, when we look at the regions, the divisions, you're going to see what I mean. It's very plausible that Harris simply does more traditionally, puts up a more traditional performance for a Democrat in parts of the Northeast and parts of the West. And that's what ties up the ball game. But loses the Midwest, as she is right now. She is losing the Midwest. Loses the Midwest, loses the South. The popular vote looks much closer, but the Electoral College is not. Because you can see when you look, oh wait, I'll show you more when we get in. There's with the divides. I actually think that Trump's vote in the South a little bit low, and you'll see what I mean in a second. Division. Here we go. All right. So, New England is the most liberal place. Obviously. And honestly, Trump is actually doing better there than he does in the Pacific states, which is Oregon, Washington, California, Hawaii, and Alaska. All right. Then the rest of the West is the mountain area. Look at how Trump is winning the undecideds in the the mountain division and in the Pacific division. It puts him basically 50-50 with her in the mountain area, in the mountain states, which is Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, stuff like that. There are some liberal states in there, and the fact that it's 50-50 could be a problem for Harris. That's, I think, actually be easy on CNN with them having her leading in Nevada. I actually could see how you could come up with that while having Trump up by 5 in Arizona. I could see how you would do that or could come up with that in the polling if you were to poll these states individually. It's totally defendable. In the Pacific, however, she does obviously carry it and carry it significantly, but he still even wins the leaners there. This is a little bit of an underperformance compared to Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, but it is much closer to what we would expect the Democrat to poll in that area in early September. Biden was like, folks, California was like 15 points. Now, looking at the Mid-Atlantic region, okay? Mid-Atlantic is New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Look at the leaners in that region, and then look at the overall, I keep saying region, the overall division. It's only Kamala plus 8, 54-46. If that's how close it is in the Middle Atlantic, and New Jersey and New York are closer than they should be right now, but there's still going to be the bulk of that, 15 points. Then what's Pennsylvania looking like? He's got a lead. That's what it would mean. All right, Trump leads in the East, North, Central. However, it is as we would expect, very much a battleground. Trump has a tiny, tiny lead there, but nevertheless, he has a lead. This is the disaster, and that's why I think she's polling sometimes better in some of these state level polls. But we'll just have to see. However, West, North, Central, some pretty important battlegrounds in there, folks. Okay, that's a problem for her. Again, that's why I really think you're looking at a national poll here. And Republicans, this guy, me, for years, has been arguing that Republicans are not going to carry the popular vote for a while. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And yet, this race is that close. East, North, Central, for instance, is Illinois. Indiana's in there. Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin. If she's doing let's say she's running traditional in Illinois, he's going to win Indiana by 15, 18 points? We'll know immediately when Pike and Vigo report. They're among the first to report results in a presidential election. And that leaves Wisconsin, Ohio. West, North, Central, by the way, includes Minnesota. Then it has the Dakotas, but there's such a smaller population than some of these other states. Even Iowa's in there, but it's a smaller state. Iowa, I believe, is like 7. It is 7% of the Big Six Rust Belt poll. Now we collect the same size sample for minimum as we would if we were just polling Iowa and a minimal sample size requirements. But when we look at it and we show people what that vote would look like, using each state's share of the vote to be what we would expect it to be, 12.5 for Minnesota, like 7 for Iowa. This is really bad news for Kamala Harris. She's down 10 points. Some of these other areas look closer. The South Atlantic should not surprise you. It's getting more. You have battlegrounds like, Georgia in there, and then you have other states that infect the South Atlantic numbers. Virginia, D.C., Maryland, Delaware, That's all in the South Atlantic, along with states like Florida. So, I think that's not a fantastic number for Trump, but it is important to remember those other states are in there. East South Central is Trump 63 to 37 when you add it all together. And I mean, when you combine the initial responses with the leaners, and that shouldn't shock anyone. I mean, we're talking about Alabama, Kentucky, Mississippi. What else is in there? Tennessee. I mean, so it really shouldn't surprise anyone. And just looking at some of those numbers originally, these you can almost see the leaners here. Those are the leaners from those areas. Here's the initial responses before the leaners, and then here's the combined. All right, with the initial and with the leaners. Then you get that combined. All right, West South Central, which is Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas. Texas is obviously a very large sample of that. Trump has the lead. It's not that big a part of the sample. It never is. And then the mountain area and then the Pacific, which we went over again. So, I mean, not great for Kamala Harris. Not great. By the way, Texas is in the southern. It is part of the South in the 4 census divisions. What else can we show you here? It's 144. Damn. This is a good dry run for... You know what? Let's take a real quick break and then we'll come back and we'll do more. It's a nice, quick, dry run for for doing the show 5 days a week, 1 hour. Well, it would be 4 days a week, 1 hour. And then what are the odds is 2 hours on Monday. It's a good dry run for that. But at the same time, man, it goes by quick. It goes by really quick no matter what. I'm trying to scream and bust out these numbers as quick as possible. This goes very fast. All right. Listen up, folks. The world is a tumultuous place. 1 minute, the economy's up and soaring. The next minute, we have to halt trading. Of course, the market's not even the real economy, which looks considerably worse. But regardless, value of the US dollar has a tremendous impact on currency, the value of currency. There's, of course, an inverse relationship if you didn't know that. The Fed is talking about reducing interest rates. They are a one-trick pony when it comes to inflation. All they can do is hike the rates. That should probably get you to anticipate what's going to happen to the dollar and purchasing power in the short term moving forward to maybe, obviously, even in the long term. And that's why a bunch of people are looking for better places to diversify their portfolio and to protect their wealth. That's where gold, silver, and other currencies come in. And I want to talk to you about our friends at Freedom Gold USA. Listen, the best thing about Freedom Gold, I can give you all the spiels, and I will. I'll tell you all about the deals. But the team at Freedom Gold is really about helping you get all the information that you need to make you feel confident and to make you feel like you're making the right decision. There is no pushy sales tactics. All right. So that is alone why I love these guys, but also because they give you, the listener and the viewer, a sweet deal. You go to these other outfits and listen, it's just the business, the name of the game. Minimum investments, $50K. Yeah, sure. You can get some free silver, $50,000. It's minimum 10 grand to open an account here. Even at Freedom Gold, it is 5,000, but not for you guys. Not for those who watch the show and either go to freedomgoldusa.com/rich or call our number, 888-279-3592. Still couldn't hurt to tell them the People's Pundit sent you because they dropped that opening requirement to just $500. And people will get thrown in a monthly prize pool to see who wins some free gold and silver. That's incredible. We had 2 winners, and once a month we have the guys on. We talk about inflation and the economy, and they're going to be announcing those winners as they did last week, I believe. Yep. And that's really a great deal in and of itself. You could get $500 for opening. You will get a $500 credit towards opening a gold or silver IRA. And there's a lot of other things that you may qualify for. If you should go to the website and check it out. See what you do, qualify for. Maybe there's a better deal for you out there based on what you want to do. Again, freedomgoldusa.com/rich or call the number. Tell them I sent you. 279 3592. All right. Okie dokie. I just want to say something. Because when we show you the bigger ballot test, you're going to see the impact from Trump's support, newfound support from RFK Jr. It's there, baby. If you add all of these three-party candidates to the ballot, Trump gets a little bit weaker. However, without RFK on the ballot, Trump is doing significantly better. And by significant, I mean by definition. The amount of voters that he is netting from RFK's coalition is keeping this a tied race. Otherwise, it would be a Harris plus 2, 2.5. It would. More and more as we kept polling. Initially, before RFK dropped out, we asked people, who would you support if RFK was not in the race? And you guys have seen this graphic before, but I want to show it to you again so you can see how it's evolved over time. This is what we got immediately. This is before RFK dropped out. 42% said, if he's not in, I'll go for Trump. About a quarter said, if he's not in, I guess I'll go to Harris. And remember, these numbers with the height of the 8-ball type coverage, 8-ball sugar high. You know what I'm saying. Man, they were on a high. They were speeding 24/7 over this woman. The coverage was worse than Barack Obama. It still is. But it's where this was at the point when I think it was at its height for effectiveness. And now it's not. And that's important because 15 additional percent told us they were going to vote for somebody else, but maybe they would support Trump. And if RFK did endorse Trump, they would likely go to him. And that put Trump closer to 60%. You have another 12 who are unsure or just may not vote. And I got to tell you, it looks like he is getting a little over 60% of those voters. I don't know what that other 12% is going to do. I'm not sure yet. They may not vote. Trump has an opportunity here. They will be very, very difficult now for those polls to pick up those voters, considering RFK is in fact out of the race already. It will be very difficult. All right. So I'm not really sure. We'll have to just see, we'll just have to see, honestly. We'll figure that out as we go. But this is kind of the job. And I think it's easy for some of these other people to miss these folks. For months, we've been polling this, and we could tell these voters it's not that simple. Oh, he was a Democrat. He's going to take away from Biden. And actually swap Biden. Now he's going to take away from whomever. I mean, that was way too superficial of an argument. He was appealing to certain voters that I really do believe, because they told us. I mean, they either haven't voted or they're very low prop. Very few were like high propensity voters who have been like looking for somewhere else to go. I feel like they were kind of the remnants of the Obama working class coalition that most went to Trump, but some of them just kind of were orphaned. I feel like you got that group in there. But if they were orphaned, then, and they didn't organically go to Trump like the other ones, then they certainly weren't Trump's in the bag. They weren't like in the bag for Donald Trump. He was going to have to earn them. And I kind of feel like we have a good 60 to 65, maybe 70% that of RFK's vote that Trump is on the verge. He's got it. He's got it. I think he's got 60 already. And I think he's probably pushing around 70% of that vote that was for RFK. Even if you're talking about the low end of RFK's support in the polls, because he was as high as 20 something in some polls, but he was ended up around 5 to 10 in ours, 11 with undecideds. That was the poll, two polls back. Even if you were talking about 50%, and then the other 15% were going to stay home, or 20% were going to stay home, and she was going to get maybe 2 in 10 or a quarter, and Trump was going to get half. I mean, you're still talking about a good point and a quarter that he would have, on the low end of Kennedy's support, that he would have netted. Here, I think at this point, we're pushing like 70. And it's like a 70 to 20, 70 to, let's be generous, 25, but the other 5% just saying, I don't know. That's more than a point. That's the margin, man. That's the margin. Even where she's leading, that's the margin. And that's why he's been able to do this. Other polls that just don't show it, I would argue you're falling victim to a response bias like you do every single year. And it's getting very annoying that you either refuse to acknowledge it or you like the outcome, don't you? You like the outcome. So you really don't want to fix it, even if you add more in the budget. You wouldn't, right? Because I'll be honest with you guys, the Public Polling Project, and I'm not talking about you viewers out there, I'm talking about these other pollsters who poll for media outlets. Here's the skinny, man. The Public Polling Project is funded publicly, and it's the target of it every month is far less than you're getting from NBC News or ABC News or Fox News or the New York Times. Far less. The difference is I want to be right. I want to be honest with people. I want to show them the real picture. So some Democrat doesn't go and commit damn suicide when, November, that Tuesday comes and they're having meltdowns like they did last time. I don't want to walk in my kid's school again and watch these women crying on the floor because they believed you. And how do you know I'm right? I'm going to show you guys something right now that is more I could go through these numbers over and over, but I'm going to show you something right now that's going to prove that I'm right with the state of this race. You ready? Here it is. This is going to do more to do that than anything I can show you in this crosstab. There it is. Oh, yeah. CNN. It's also in the Washington Post. It's also in the New York Times. You know, it doesn't look good for them when they're gearing up to resurrect the Russia hoax. See, it won't be their fault again if Donald Trump wins this election. They can't take responsibility for lying to the country about a senile vice president. I mean, a former vice president who they wanted to run for president. Scam the country, exploit a pandemic, get 51 former and current intelligence officers to lie to you about propaganda on a laptop. That wasn't propaganda. That was absolutely 100% true. It's not their fault that Americans would be mad at them for this. Because fast forward 4 years, and most Americans are suffering because of that scam. It cannot be their fault. They will not take responsibility for it. It will be Russia's fault. It'll be fake news' fault. Hell, it'll even be Murdoch's fault, even though he wants Kamala Harris to win this election, and Fox News is doing everything they can to do it underhandedly and screw their own viewers. Talk about a scam artist. It can't be that Americans are unhappy with a new war in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Can't be that. It can't be any of that. It has to be somebody else's fault. They can't conduct introspection. By the way, oh my god, look at that national security advantage for Trump. Yeah, we'll get into those issues. I don't want to jump too far ahead here. Um, but on most of the big issues, Kamala Harris has certainly narrowed the gap. Um, I think that's true, and I think that's fair to say that his biggest lead is on immigration, where he has a 51-38 lead on who you trust more. But she has narrowed the gap on things like inflation and the economy. That's something that the um, Trump team's going to have to deal with. He's only got a few point lead on her with the economy and inflation. That's not great for him. And actually, he's got a bigger lead on the economy than he does in inflation, which is a little bit weird and it's just jumped right out to me. But on the Russo-Ukrainian war, there are things that people are just not happy with. He's got a lead on that. The Palestinian-Israeli conflict, he's got a small lead on that. And by small, I mean 8 points. There are a lot of people picking neither right now. And the reason they would pick neither is because they really don't know. They're still kind of like juggling all of this bombardment of media stuff where they don't really know what's what. In our poll, Joe Biden's approval rating has risen. It's risen. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just noise, but it's been like this for a week where for some reason people are kind of like maybe they're feeling bad for him. You know? Maybe they're feeling bad for him. Maybe they think he's out. Put him on the shelf. The poor guy. I don't know. By the way, we only have the net, Tim Walz. He's net positive, but many people have no idea still who he is, which is another. He's starting to get more negative as people get to know who he is. Certainly is. We could go over the generic ballot if you want. You want to see the generic ballot? Oh shit! I'm over here trying to show. I'm over here trying to show you guys results, and the thing's still up. I know we're at 2:00. I know I'm supposed to shut up now. Let's go over quickly what the top line of the generic ballot looks like, and then we'll call it. I'll get back to doing this. Don't forget to watch Battleground Live at 5. We'll be talking more about this poll on Battleground Live at 5. All right, let me close this so you can see it. As you can see, Donald Trump is running significantly ahead of the Republican candidates. Republicans are down about 0.6% before leaners. However, Democrats are winning the leaners. They are winning the leaners. These people are someone else, third party. Most of them will not vote, maybe, or they'll leave down ballot blank. Republicans have a problem here. How could you be running 7 points behind Donald Trump? It's 5 with leaners, but barely, by the way. How could you be running that far behind Donald Trump? You might want to think about what that is that's doing that. You're certainly nowhere near his support with black voters. Nowhere near it. 30% with Hispanic voters? What the are you doing? Probably because they feel like you're full of shit. 12-point lead with whites, then losing. You're not losing the lean with whites, but it's even. Even? The hell are you doing? You got these numbers with Hispanics, and it's just like I could name 5 districts from between South Texas and the Central Valley in California that are going to be real problematic if you don't figure out what the hell to do about this. The Mid-Atlantic, you're on par basically there, but getting just slaughtered in parts of the Northeast and in the Mid-Atlantic, you're down like almost 10. That's not awful considering where you should be with New York and New Jersey, but damn. Damn. The South Atlantic even? By the way, the Democrats are actually winning the lean in the South Atlantic. Again, maybe Maryland, maybe Delaware. We will get into that very, very, very detailed. Well, but you'll see it. But this isn't good at all. By the way, take a look at the mountain region. What? Sam Brown, Kerry Lake. What? Maybe the dumbasses at the Republican Senatorial Committee and the Republican Congressional Committee could stop maybe wasting tens and tens of millions of dollars trying to win the state of Maryland, which you're going to lose, and instead divert that money to districts in the South Atlantic that you can actually win. Running significantly behind Trump in the West North Central region of the country. In the East North Central, look at that. They got a 3-point lead. And losing leans by 2 interviews, but still. Jesus. And you can make up excuses about sampling errors for subgroups, and I get that. I do. But then let me ask you a question. Why is that not the case with Donald Trump? Why is that not the case with Donald Trump? If this is just some kind of like noise with small subgroups, why are those very same people saying they'll vote for Trump and not you? I told you when Laura and I went to New York to go to a wedding, and then I had a business thing I had to do anyway, so we were like super happy. By the way, Jessamine, I hope you are absolutely having a fantastic time with your new beautiful bride, and you guys slayed it in Italy. I really do. I promised I might give him a shout out. I'll do that for you too next time on Newsmax, brother. Dr. Gorko let me do it. What a beautiful couple. What a great guy. No offense to everyone else in my in-laws, but Jesse Mann is hands down my favorite in-law. I'm sorry I said it. I said it. I love this guy. I love this guy. Such a good dude. Always has been fantastic to my wife. Love him, man. Love him like a brother. Anywho, perfect example. Perfect example. Whether you're talking about working class areas of Paramus, working class areas north and just a little bit north, over and across the bridge, could see this very clear theme. Trump sign for a Democratic congressman. Right next to each other. I'm a Trump or bust voter. Red and white signs all over New York. Right next to the Democratic congressman. Or a woman, for that matter. What the hell? I mean, I really think sometimes these people don't deserve to win, folks. Do they really deserve it? Like, what have they ever done for the American public? And for those of you who are Republicans out there, you could say, "Oh, well, Rich, what do Democrats do except for this, that, and ruin it?" And blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, but you know what? I'll tell you what they did do. What they told their voters they were going to do. It's kind of a big deal. You may disagree with it, but they followed through for them. Didn't they? Not Republicans. No, sir. No, sir. What do we got here? Lifetime clippage? Lifetime clippage? Sure is. All right, so again, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Get your act together or lose the house. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you can tell me to stick it, and you can say, "Oh, you're not right." Okay, well, I think I am. I think you're going to lose the House of Representatives if you keep this up. Because if I remember correctly, I think I pegged your national House vote share almost perfectly. Almost perfectly. I even overstated Republicans by, I think, less than a point. Less than a point. Demographics, nailed it. Basically the exact margin with even post-grads. The problem was you just didn't win enough. You did better with educated voters. You did your margins were decent. We're just as good as Trump's in some areas with the white working class. The problem was you didn't get enough of them to come out. That probably has something to do with them thinking you're full of shit too. Don't be full of shit. Do what you say you're going to do. Support the guy they're supporting. Tell them that you can't possibly vote for Donald Trump and the Democrat down ballot, no matter how loyal you may be to the Democratic Party. If you support the Trump agenda, you've got to vote for us. And we promise you we will support him. I think that's a big part of this. I think they've gone with the devil they know over the devil they don't because Republicans have not proven themselves to be loyal. And a lot of people think to themselves, well, God, if they would stab their own nominee, if they would stab their own president, sitting president in the back, then why on earth would I expect them to be loyal to me? Valid point, don't you think? Of course it is. Of course it is. All right, don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and share them far and wide. If you're on Rumble right now, it'd be great if you would just go on over to Locals, subscribe there. If you're on YouTube, vice versa, same thing. Mosey on over to Rumble and like and subscribe over there. 2 ways. Advertisers, algorithm. I'll go back and forth, whichever one's first. It really doesn't matter. Alliteration's alliteration, baby. Sean Parnell, Battleground Live at 5. We're going to go over this more. We're going to have a hell of a time, as we always do. Don't miss it on Rumble. Keep an eye on my Locals feed, Twitter feed, or whatever X, and you will see it there as well. True Social. At Peoples_Pundit on X. At Peoples Pundit on Getter and Truth. No underscore. All right. That leaves it for us. I'm going to go work on this to make it nice and crispy and perfect for you guys, and then I will send that out. As you can tell, I am a little bit sick. These kids always go back to school and get the crud. And then they bring the crud home. My little one didn't feel well, so kind of let him pal with me, and I did myself. But I'm going to work through it because it's election season, baby. We all will rest enough when we're dead. Right? Amen. Public Polling Project link is in the description, as is everything from Freedom Gold. Don't forget to share the Public Polling Project with your friends. Share it far and wide. We so much appreciate that you guys do fund this. I like this model a lot, and I would like it to continue and to thrive for many years to come, because this is the only model that keeps you all in line. It incentivizes the pollster to try to do the best job they can. So much so that when I think there's a bad bias the way there has been, I'm going to make sure that we collect enough, regardless of what that means for cost. It has to be done correct. Or don't do it at all. Don't do it at all. All right. None but love for you guys. Okay? Laura told me to tell you all goodbye. She is in the other room on the computer doing her thing. And I will, and already did, convey that message. See you at 5. Do not miss it. It's going to be fun. Love hanging out with my buddy Sean over there at Battleground. And I can't wait to do it again. See you soon, folks. Oh, keep an eye on the feed for the poll, of course. Locals, you will get it first. A tied poll with a Trump lead in the Midwest is a Trump win, in case I was not clear enough. We'll see what it looks like next time.